Welcome to the Culinary Treasure Podcast. I'm Steven Shomler, your host. Today finds us once again on the island of Kauai. I absolutely love the island of Kauai. I've been to a lot of the Hawaiian Islands. I don't know, it's quite possible Kauai is my favorite. Today we are blessed to have Michael Littman with Hapa PDX and Hapa Kauai here. How are you doing, Michael?
Doing great, Steven. Great to be here with you.
It's a lot of fun. If you want to see all of the Culinary Treasure Network's Kauai-centric podcast, I invite you to go to kawaitreasure.com. That's kawaitreasure.com. All right, really exciting stuff happening in the world of Hapa. We're going to get into all that, but questions I ask all my people in all my podcasts. Where were you born?
I was born on Oahu. My father was in the military, so I was born at Tripler Hospital right outside of Honolulu.
All right, and for those that don't know, what does Hapa mean?
Hapa is a Hawaiian, I don't know if it's slang, but it's just a term we use. Actually, I believe it's a Hawaiian word, and it means half. But the slang meaning of it is someone who has a background of Caucasian and Asian ancestry. So your mother or father was either one or the other, and you came out mixed, or Hapa, half and half.
And so let's talk about, so your wife is Hapa. I've recorded a podcast with her. She did a phenomenal job. She is the founding chef of Hapa, and the broth, the Hapa style broth, I absolutely love it. And that comes out of her own heart and her artistry. She's a chef, but she's an artist that just makes magic with food. Her mom's from Montana. Dad is from Oahu. Really good story there for her. Where was your dad from?
My dad is from Springfield, Massachusetts. He was also military brat. He grew up kind of moving around the country. And my mom is from Japan. She's from Hokkaido, which is the northern island. She was born in Sapporo.
I've got Hokkaido down on my list of places I want to visit in Japan. I've heard a lot of good things about that. Okay, so tell the story about the first time. I love this story. And your dad's name is Chuck. I want to give a shout out to your dad because he and I become friends. He's so proud of you. I feel like I need to call the paramedics every time I tell him more good news about you because he gets so excited. I'm afraid he's going to jump out of his skin. We got to get the paramedics to stuff him back into his skin. But Chuck, I know you're listening to this podcast, and it's so awesome how proud you are of your son. It's a joy to see a dad that's just so excited about his son. But tell us about the first time your dad laid eyes on your mom.
So my father was stationed in a base in Tokyo. Tachikawa was like the specific area. And my mom had relocated from Sapporo, the northern island, to Tokyo. So she was working as a tour guide. And I think she was in a station, like a bus station. And my father was probably on R&R with one of his friends. And the way he tells the story is he was kind of overlooking at, from the second floor of the balcony down there and watching my mom, my soon-to-be mom, talking to tourists and stuff. And he says, hey, tells his buddy, you see that girl there? I'm going to marry that girl. He was right.
He made his call.
Got it done. He got
and
it
he
done.
went introduced her. And
I don't know the details of it. I mean, I should probably ask him about it. But he made it happen. That's kind of the end game is getting it done.
I do a couple different podcasts. I've got my Travel Treasure Podcast, who do travel content. I've got my Epic Disclosure Podcast, which is just stories that are not food story, not travel story, just stories. I should have your dad, as a guest on the Epic Disclosure Podcast. That would be fun, particularly because I can edit it when he gets too crazy.
By all means, go for it.
Your dad's amazing. And your mom's amazing. Your mom is just an incredible, gifted person, both of your parents. So you were very young, and you guys moved to the island of Oahu.
I was born on Oahu. My brother was born in Japan.
Right. Yeah, you were born on Oahu.
So I grew up on Oahu. My brother and I kind of grew up.
And what part of Oahu?
Well, first we lived on Hickam Air Force Base, but soon after that, like when we were like infants, 2 and 3, we moved to Hawaii Kai, which is this east side of the island. And I kind of remember, I have fond memories of that area. I lived in like a cul-de-sac, and we had 2 German shepherds. It was great growing up there.
And you moved away, unfortunately, went from Hawaii when you were 11, but 0 to 11 was incredibly formative to you. Hawaii, the state, just came to feel like home to you. And you did a lot of boogie boarding, even though you were young. Where are some of the places you boogie boarded?
I mean, I got into it because my brother was into it. He was a little older, so what he would do initially was you'd go to McDonald's and steal a tray and use the tray to surf on, and then eventually, when you got enough money, you'd save up and get like the Moray Boogie 135. That's like the first one that came out, and then you ride at this place in Waikiki called The Wall, and it's just for kids. It's like this such a little fun, easy break, but when you're a little kid, it's like challenging. You know, you want to master the wall. And even now, you can go there in Waikiki to The Wall and see like hundreds of kids, local kids, just bodyboarding there.
And did you ever, is it Sandy's? Is that right?
Sandy Beach is on the east side. It's a high performance wave. It's got multiple breaks there. You can longboard, shortboard, body surf, bodyboard, everything.
And you were young, but did you ever bodyboard there when you were 0 to 11?
Not when we were young, like that young, because it was just too hard. I mean,
but when you were an adult later, when you moved back?
When we came back, we were older, teenagers actually. So we'd come back to Hawaii often in our teenage years. And yeah, we were good in the water. We were on the swim team and so forth. So Sandy's was like the next thing to master, and it's an awesome wave.
So it's crazy to me that you didn't meet Sarah till years later, but you guys were both boogie boarding on the same beach. Is that's just kind of wild to me? And she's
probably at different times, different periods, but the same breaks. Like I know she liked this break called Pipe Littles. I was over at this break called Half Point. And Generals. There's like 10 different breaks for Sandy's, but each reef and location has a name for it. And she was really good. Sarah was very aggressive when she was younger. And I knew that because when we went on a date when we were older, we went out to the North Shore and it was kind of big. And I was like, I was kind of nervous. The sets were coming in. I was kind of scratching over these sets. And I see her, I turn over and she's like duck diving this monstrous wave, just barreling. And she's like calmly duck diving it.
So you went to University of Delaware and you were on the swim team. So you're pretty good in the water. And then you graduated there. And then where'd you go to grad school?
I wanted to go back to Hawaii and I got into UH. So I was in the University of Hawaii, Manoa, living in Manoa Valley. Great.
And you were studying how to make like infectious diseases, right?
No. But yeah, I mean, I was working with, I was in microbiology and I was researching Legionella and tuberculosis. So they're kind of, highly transmissible. So you have to be very good in the lab. I think that it's helped out with, being good in the kitchen.
Well, I just say that because, that is like really smart. I mean, that's really technical smart. Research is really technical. It's detail oriented. And I think at this point in your life, you're kind of, you're easygoing, you're super good with people skills. And I think it'd be easy for people to overlook and miss, like you are like a brainiac. And sometimes you're just happy-go-lucky. Hey, nice to meet you. And then when you're having fun, you're talking in pidgin. And I think people miss like what a genius you are. In all seriousness, I mean, you got a big brain on you, boy. Like
I don't know about that.
How tall your brain weigh?
How much your brain weigh, bro? No, I mean, I wanted to be in Hawaii, and it just, I wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to specialize in, but it was there. I wouldn't say I'm very like the most studious person or the most cerebral person, but I like to try to find the path of least resistance to get things done. So I'm pretty efficient with that. Like if I see tasks, I know how to get them done.
Okay, so here's the thing that's impressive. Now, for me, being like we're in Hawaii right now, we're recording this in Kauai, and I know, I got no hesitation to say I'm just like a dumb haole. And I know millions and millions of people can speak Japanese, but it's like not an easy language to learn. And you not only speak Japanese, but you got a pretty big deal to go to Japan when you were in grad school. Tell us about that.
There was a program that the Japanese Ministry of Education sponsored called the JET program, and it's a pretty prestigious appointment. You have to go through the consulate general in each of the, there's one in DC, there's one in Honolulu, and you write a letter of why you want to go there. You submit your grades and you got to get recommendations. So I was fortunate enough to get appointed that. And it was during my research at the University of Hawaii. So I asked my professor, is it okay if I leave for just 1 year? And these appointments they're renewable each year. So you can go up to 3 years if you wanted to. And a lot of my friends did that. And I wish I could do it longer, but I promised I would come back and finish up my research, get my master's degree. So that's what I did.
And you and then you were teaching English in Japan, and you already could speak Japanese, at least some, and your Japanese got even better when you were there.
Survival Japanese. There's no English speakers in the small town where I lived. And I knew, simple words growing up. My mom spoke some Japanese in the house. And I studied some Japanese in college, but when you're in it with natives all around and that's all you hear, then you're dreaming in Japanese.
And different cultures have different things that are of value, and honor and respect is my understanding very, very important in Japanese culture. And it's super impressive to me. Like, I say this very sincerely, when you talk about Japanese culture and your Japanese heritage and Japan, like there is like some awe and respect coming from your heart. I mean, it is deep within you, that respect and honor for that culture, and it's your culture as well.
When I was younger, I kind of frayed away from it. I wasn't completely proud of it. And after living in Japan and as I got older, I embraced it more and more. Like I'm really happy that I have Japanese heritage in me, and my mom raised me a certain way. I watch my mom work. Her work ethic is unparalleled, and she's got humility. She's gracious, and I like those qualities. And Japanese culture embodies that. It has never been about material things. It's all about your character defines you in that culture.
Yeah, it's impressive. I just I can see a lot of people from America don't understand how to do business in Japan or with people from Japan. And I think that you would just do so well because your respect is so intense and so real and so sincere.
Doing business in Japan is an art. It's not like the way business is done in America. And there's certain protocols, there's certain ways you speak to someone who is your superior and someone who is below you. But a lot of respect and a lot of patience is required to do business with Japanese.
Yeah, and my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that their perspective is they're willing to watch you and see, are you for real? Is this really happening? And there's kind of an evaluation period where, if you're just no offense to people that are different, but a lot of Americans are dumb about some of that cultural stuff, and they don't understand they're being evaluated the whole time.
I don't want to say like American culture is better or worse. It's just different. But in Japan, when they go into a relationship, a business relationship, they're looking very, very long term. So they take their time. They want to make sure that this is the right decision. And so they're willing to wait and see. They're not in a hurry. Not in a hurry to make a quick buck. They like perseverance and longevity, and those relationships go on and on.
Yep. Okay, so then a really cool thing happens in your life. You end up opening a coffee distribution business in Honolulu with your brother Dave. Shout out to Dave. I think he kind of likes whiskey. I love your brother Dave. He's such a big cheerleader of you as well. And your partner Bryce. And three of you had a business. And this was a big, big turning point in your life, this business. Not necessarily because of the business, but that's when she came into your life right then. Tell us that story
she
from your
right
perspective.
Through that door. Sarah had moved back to Honolulu, and she was going to do a business. She was going to do a coffee business.
Yeah, she told me when I recorded a podcast how much she loved coffee, and she thought coffee was her future.
And we were coffee distributors bringing coffee from the Pacific Northwest. And the brand that we carried was what she was looking for, fortunately.
Because she knew good coffee.
She knew the brand she wanted, and she reached out to our company, Island Coffee and Espresso. And my brother and Bryce were the two senior partners. And I was kind of like the guy who was like, okay, load up the truck, Mike. Okay, I'll go and load up the truck. And Sarah was a customer. She put the order in, and one day I was the guy like being told to load up Sarah's van.
And there's I like safe roller coasters. I like a wimpy roller coaster. For roller coaster aficionados, like I like Matterhorn and Space Mountain at Disneyland. Those aren't real roller coasters. A real roller coaster, I think I would pass out. And you're not a big fan of crazy roller coasters, right? Just it's not, we used to be, but not anymore. And so if you and I rode, say, a Matterhorn, we'd have a different, same experience, but a different journey. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And so there's when I met with Sarah, when I did record the podcast, Sarah, I told the fun story through her experience of the roller coaster of you guys' togetherness. And so now we're going to tell the story from your perspective, and it's the same roller coaster ride, but each person has a different experience. So it almost sounds like a different story. And maybe I embellished a little with Sarah, and maybe I'm going to embellish a little now, but as I understand it, you're loading the truck, and she was smitten right then. And she kept bothering you and just was hoping that you would fall in love with her.
No, that's completely wrong. I mean, obviously I was impressed because she was young and she was doing her own business. So that was attractive to me. Someone who was, had the gumption to get something going on her own, because that's what we were doing. And, didn't hurt that she was really cute and she's really good looking, and
she's really smart and she's really creative.
And I'm personally attracted to Hapas. Like, she's Hapa, and that's kind of like in my wheelhouse. I like that. So yeah, I mean, I wanted her business to succeed, so I would just give her some extra customer service, maybe an extra phone call, an extra visit. Hey, how's things going? I wanted to make sure she was doing okay.
And she noticed. Oh, she knows. She talked about it in the podcast. Let's talk about your first date.
Well, that was kind of interesting. I mean, we went out for drinks, and I think it was in like Halloween or something, but we went to like some restaurant in downtown Honolulu, getting our drinks, and we're having a good time. But I don't like carrying things on me. I've always hated carrying like a wallet or something. So I usually had this big bank bag, and I usually keep it in my car. Like, don't tell anyone, but I keep my bank bag in my car. So I forgot my wallet when it was time to pay, and I was like, oh man, I have to go back to the car to get it. And it was just kind of awkward, right? Because it's like the first date, and you don't have I forgot my wallet excuse, right? But it's like, I really didn't have it, but it was in the car, and I just felt kind of crappy about it. But
so you had a nice car. You took her to a nice place. You took her to Palomino's, right?
Yep, Palomino's.
And you ordered all the nice things. Mm-hmm. And then the check comes, you're like, I don't have any money, sweetheart.
It's like, wow. So you're that guy, huh?
But she was that, again, I'm embellishing. I know I am having fun with it. But she was so smitten with you, she didn't mind. It was totally good. She went on, at minimum, regardless of my embellishment, she went on a second date with you. So that's impressive.
Maybe it was like me testing her, see if, because you're a business owner, can you step up and pay your own way kind of thing. Maybe you want to come over the top or something. Make a strong move on me, power move. You never know. We're always playing 3D chess, right?
That's right. Okay, so then just kind of fast forward through your journey. You and Sarah ended up in New York. You did some work in banking and some stockbroker stuff, and that's not really part of your culinary journey, but that's kind of the story we're telling is your culinary journey. And you were in Florida. You and Sarah were in Florida for a hot minute, and then in 2004, you guys moved to Oregon. And then we're going to kind of get into the culinary story in Oregon, but something really powerful happened in 2002 at a really special. Now, I spent a lot of years in the nonprofit world, and I would look up definitions. What does this mean in ancient Greek? What does this mean in ancient Hebrew? Those are some of the cultures that I was connected to. And I came to have define things, like what does they mean? And sacred means set apart for a special purpose. That's how I would end up teaching people. Sacred is something set apart for a special purpose. So you had a really powerful thing happen in 2002, like at a place that's sacred to you and your family. So talk to me about 2002.
We were living in New York. Post 9/11, and it's funny because today's 9/11. And I was still a securities trader, but we had gotten engaged, and Sarah was planning we were planning a wedding, and we wanted to get married in home. We want to go back home, which is Hawaii.
Yeah, the state of Hawaii.
Yes, but Oahu is always kind of like it's crowded. It's not a place where you can kind of feel relaxed. So we've always had fond memories of Kauai. Kauai is the Garden Isle. It's not very populated. It's just feels so peaceful here. It's got a lot of good energy. And
yeah, when I get off the plane here, I've been blessed to be here. This is my second or third visit, and you just like I've been to the Big Island, I've been to Oahu, and I've been here, and there's just I love all the Hawaiian Islands I've been to. I've enjoyed. But just the energy and the peace and the vibe, I just feel like, well, it's like getting into a good bath or something. It's just so amazing.
There's chickens running around the airport.
And I love the chickens in the morning. If I wake up,
There's chickens running around in the baggage claim. That's how you know you're in Kauai.
That's right.
You know?
Okay, so Kauai's a very special place for you and Sarah.
Yeah. So we found a church in Koloa. It's the oldest Catholic church on Kauai. And we got married there at St. Raphael's on Hapa Road. And we got our reception at the Grand Hyatt, which is where we are right now. And
we're recording the podcast at the Grand Hyatt, and I will probably, I'll probably choke up a couple times through this podcast because you and your wife are very special to me, and we've been through some stuff together, good stuff. And 2 days ago, I took a picture of you standing in front of the church and the sign, and it's on Hapa Road. And that's just so, and it's in Koloa. It's so incredible and amazing that it's beautiful to me.
Well, we're back here almost 20 years, like to the day, right? Like Sarah flew back on August 8th. We were married August 10th, 2002. She came back on August 8th of 2022. And then on August 10th, we had dinner at Tide Pools, which is their flagship restaurant here. And I got her another wedding ring. I actually re-proposed to her on August 10th of 2022 in front of my kids. It was a very special moment. I mean, I was so happy. I mean, we're so blessed just to be here, but to have our kids experience this now is, I mean, it's like we're living in a fantasy land.
And I really believe, I teach people, the universe is pulling for you, and it doesn't mean you won't have hard times. But every time I've been through hell, I've been through great disasters. The universe has been there to help me recover and battle back. And I know we're skipping ahead because we were in 2002 getting married, 2004 Oregon, but we've skipped ahead to 2022 for just a second. If you're following along, hang in there with us. But you said you re-proposed to her, and just a few days earlier, you were at the Hyatt Regency and you got her a ring, and you had a really pretty amazing, the universe has got your back experience.
The person who I purchased the ring from, she's a Hawaiian. I think the word is not kahuna, but a kapuna. Like it's like a female priestess. And I kind of told her my story. Like, I'm here by myself, but my family's coming, and I want to get something for my wife because she recently damaged her wedding band. It broke in the kitchen. Like, she was working at Hapa, and the band broke. I was like, I want to get her another wedding band. And I told her our whole thing of getting here safely, and we want to do a project here because we own a restaurant in Portland, and we want to do something like that here. And she gave me this Hawaiian blessing. And in the middle of the jewelry store, it was just her and I. And she started, singing in Hawaiian, and I started crying because I was like, I didn't really know this lady, and she's saying this prayer for us that to protect us and to deliver my family safely here, and to make sure that we're protected, and we carry that spirit of aloha with us, and good things will happen to us. And then a few days later, after we got the ring, and she asked me, "Hey, so did you guys get it?" I was like, "No, we're still waiting." And she just looked at me and she said, "You're gonna get it." We got it. I couldn't believe it. It's just incredible.
It's not corny to me at all. Some people may think it's corny, but we stopped at Kauai Coffee Friday, and I got this little wooden thing that you hang up, and it says, "Be the aloha you wish to see in the world." And for some people that may be silly, but it's deeply meaningful to me, and I think that it exactly exemplifies who you are and how you conduct yourself. You are the aloha you wish to see in the world, which is really, I don't know, I just think it's amazing. So 2004, you guys moved to Oregon. You're doing various different business things, and it's cold, it's rainy, it's wet. I feel sorry for the people who moved to visit Oregon in August when it's sunny, and they say, "I'm going to move there." And then by about October 12th, it starts raining, and it rains hard until after the 4th of July. That summer doesn't start till after the 4th of July. And I can't tell many how 4th of July's I've been in Oregon where it's raining. And people don't understand that. And Sarah wants to have ramen. So you guys start researching ramen, and she told me on a podcast she went to different places to find ramen. She decided maybe she might have to make ramen herself. And so you have a little bit role in that because she ended up learning from a ramen master learning how to make ramen. Now, how did you had a role in her being connected to that ramen master?
Yeah, we've been living in Portland for a few years, and I think it was closer like, 2010, 2011. She started thinking about getting back into business again, doing something. Because we had kids, and so she was being a mom for a while, but the kids were older. So she told me about that. She said, hey, I think I want to do a business again, and I think I want to do something to do with noodles, with ramen, because I'm craving it now. It brought back some memories of her childhood. So I was like, you know what? You've been with me following my career in finance for 15, 16 years. I said, I want to back you up this time. I want to do something with you. I want to help make your dream come true. And it just kind of put me on a mission. So it's like, how do we get this done? What do we need to do to get it done? And I went to Japan to research it some more. And then I came back and I met a friend of mine, Hanizawa, and he introduced me to a ramen master, his friend. And this guy is a ramen guru. He's from Tokyo. And it was his mission for the past 10 years to just master making Tokyo style shoyu ramen. Nakazawa sensei. And he didn't speak English. So he moved out to Portland to work with Sarah on mastering these Japanese techniques to make it taste the right way, using the right ingredients and the right techniques. And we keep talking about that, but it is an art to make that broth. And Sarah's an artist.
Well, and she's also a warrior because, you said the kids were older, but as I hear and understand the story, she's literally has a newborn on her lap while you are translating. She's learning to make ramen while she has a newborn, a 7-year-old, and a 10-year-old. Yeah, that's pretty freaking amazing.
That's true. The boys were older, but Sky was a newborn. And
that's a worry to pull off.
So when you have 3 kids, they need a lot of food, So we're thinking we got to do some sort of food business so we don't starve to death, kind of thing. And that kind of had something to do with it as well. But yeah, Sarah would be taking directions from Nakazawa in Japanese. I was interpreting for her, for him, and she was holding Sky, just doing it with one hand. Amazing.
And she learned his really in-depth. It's like she went to Olympic training to make ramen. And then once she kind of mastered what he taught her, then she was able to riff on it and come up with her own style. Like the shoyu ramen broth she makes. I am nowhere near a ramen expert. I don't even qualify to play one on TV. But the shoyu ramen, the people that seem to ramen have told me that broth is that's the real deal. That's shoyu broth. But then the broth that it needs to be named better, that's in the G special, we got to brand that better. But the broth that's there, that's her own creation. And that is the best ramen broth I have ever had. It's deep, it's rich, it's unctuous. And she learned enough, mastered ramen enough, the broth making, to make her own that's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there's your standard ramen broths. You have your shio, misos, tonkotsus, shoyus. These are salt-based broths. But you have to master the basic techniques first before you can start branching out. You have to understand how flavors work, how layering works with different broths. You're blending soups together. And there's ingredients to use. And Nakazawa sensei was very strict. So he wanted things done a specific way. And I think those habits, those technical skills were ingrained into Sarah. So then it allowed her to then think beyond that and say, okay, now we can expand and try it this way. So the G Special broth, yeah, it's her own. It's an award-winning broth. We won awards for it. There's no one else that has anything quite like it. And that's great because it kind of gives us an identity, right? Hapa is the only place where you can get the G Special. There's nothing really like it. And
we'll get to it in a second, but just mention now so people can have a little nugget what we're foreshadowing. So it's also the only place they can get the monowave noodle. Hapa, that broth, that noodle, it's pretty amazing. So Sarah working on learning how to make ramen and broth. You spent some time part-time with the guys at 808 Grinds. Love both of them. They had a food cart. They've done really well for themselves. So you see the food cart scene. And then you guys decide that you're going to maybe open a food cart selling ramen. How did that come about from your perspective?
Well, ideally, it wasn't the best idea because food carts are hard to make ramen in because you need a lot of water. You need giant stocks, big pots and stuff. So you need a lot of water. And food carts, they have these smaller water tanks. And then the wastewater tanks as well, they're small. And you're actually going through a ton of water to do it. However, food carts are nice because you don't need as much capital to start it. And it's a good way to test the concept. So although we would love to have done like a small izakaya or something, it was just realistically, it was better to start as a food cart.
And tell me so a food cart, for those that don't know, in Portland, so a food truck has an engine and a steering wheel. A food cart in Portland often is just a box on wheels. It may or may not have an engine, may not have a steering wheel. So your contraption that you built, where did you find the box that became Hapa PDX, the food cart?
The trailer was listed in Vancouver, and I think it was just a trailer for like a motorbike or something, but it was in really good shape. The trailer was in good shape. It just had to be modified.
So this is a trailer with walls and a roof on it. It's a box.
It's a box with wheels and a hitch. Yep.
And then you guys had to build that out and build a kitchen inside a motorcycle box.
Yeah, you've got to hire. We hired someone to do that, but they basically cut holes into the trailer and they outfit it with electrical and plumbing and then you start bringing in your equipment and stuff. But that's what they do. And yep, that's the best way to start a business in Portland is to go as a food cart.
At least a culinary business. And I literally wrote the book on Portland food carts. And, so I spent some time at a la carte food cart, 59th and Division. And before you got there was a food cart, Shut Up and Eat. And just before you arrived, opened your food cart up, they ended up going brick and mortar on 38th and Gladstone, a really cool place. We'll come back to that in a second because it ties in. But you and your wife went ahead and you were getting ready to open your food cart. And there was you ended up doing this big event to kind of like test. So you had to make ramen for 100 people for a school program for one of your kids. How did that go? This was even before the cart opens.
It was our kids go to Japanese immersion school. That was really close to where we lived. In fact, we moved to Portland because of that school, because I wanted my kids to learn Japanese. So they had a spring festival, and we signed up to do, a space so we could do ramen there. We didn't know how many bowls we were going to sell. We just made as much as we could make, and it was in the summertime. So the weather was it turned out to be a really hot day. It was like 90 degrees and stuff, but we were able to sell about 100 bowls. So that was a good sign that people were willing to try ramen, and even though it was warm, and we had a really favorable response. So that kind of gave us more impetus. We got to get this business up and running. There's a huge demand for ramen in Portland.
And you guys opened up at 58th and Division, like I said, a la carte.
52nd Division.
Yeah, you're right. And a lot of really good food carts there. I remember Burger Guild was amazing. Chicken
Azul Run Chicken Run is a great Thai cart. Second Sun Kimbap was a Korean sushi. It was great. There was 50 Licks was there, and Istanbul Delight did some Mediterranean food, gyros and stuff. So yeah, it was great food there.
So those of you listening that don't know anything about Portland food cart history, you don't know what we're talking about. But for those of you that do, some of those carts are near and dear to your heart. And I remember when you guys opened because I was there.
You were there day one.
And it was pretty amazing. And the food was incredible. The ramen was incredible. Sarah's family, a whole bunch of people were there from Moses Lake. It was really kind of incredible. They were supporting. How did you feel? Your cart's open and people are paying you for your ramen.
It was more a sense of relief, I think, because you got to get open. I mean, you can plan all you want and have the best goals and business plan, but you just got to do it. Doing it is the hard part. There's no safety net. You're just open and that's it. Here we go. So yes, very relieved. And, when you're selling your food and, you're even making $200 in a day you're kind of happy. It's that's more than making no money. And it starts to see your numbers go up and up. You get more and more wow, this can really turn into something.
And so I'll give you my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, of the monowave noodle story. So you're making more, initially, day one, more of a traditional ramen noodle. You got to eat that right away, and then you're supposed to culturally make a lot of slurping noise. And if you don't eat it right away, it kind of disintegrates. And so people in Portland were buying it and then walking home or riding their bike home or driving home and eating it 45 minutes later. And the noodles aren't made to hold up for that. Am I close to reality so far?
Some Well, on rainy days, some people just take it to go. Like they eat at home. You know, they don't want to eat outside in bad weather. But what happens is the broth is really hot, so the noodles start to, break down, and it's not as you're not getting the real taste, which is immediately eat your ramen. That's how you're supposed to eat it, immediately.
And because you grew up spent many years in Oahu, you somehow, and you worked in Oahu, you knew the people at Sun Noodle.
We just knew that was the noodles we used to eat when we were growing up. That company, it's a Japanese company that started like in 1971, like when I was born, and they make really good ramen noodles. Their noodles, and they make many different types of noodles, but we were looking for a specific type of noodle that could withstand sitting in hot ramen broth for longer than like 10 or 15 minutes.
So that you contacted them, and they ended up making you a proprietary noodle. It's pretty amazing.
Yes, I mean our noodle I would say it's non-traditional ramen noodle. It's a little thicker, and it's a little more. It has like a little more springiness, a little more density to it, and a little more eggy taste to it. So that's closer to like a saimin noodle or a Chinese style noodle. But it kind of went well with our broths. I mean, our broths were intense. I mean, Sarah uses some amazing salts and amazing tamaris, ingredients that are really bold. And that's the thing with Hawaii people and growing up in Hawaii. The flavor resonates. It's not very subtle and, it's delicate. No, you're going to feel it and taste it.
Yes. Yeah, so when I try to explain to people, what's Hapa ramen? What kind of ramen? To say, well, I said and I hold up my right hand, there's Japanese ramen. Hold up my left hand, and Hawaii. If you grew up in Hawaii, you know about saimin, and that's a different kind of ramen. And then I put my hand in the middle and say, well, then there's Hapa style ramen, and it's just different. It's not quite like one. It's not like the other. It's its own thing. And part of what makes it different is this monowave noodle, a little bit stronger, a little bit just amazing. And then Sarah's broths, which are incredible, and her shoyu is spot on. And then her G special broth, that's her own magical, mystical broth she's come up with, and you can only get those at Hapa, and that's Hapa style ramen. It is, you've spoiled me. Like, I'm afraid if I go to Japan, I'll say, well, this is almost as good as what they do in Portland and Kauai.
I mean, I would say saimin is a lot further away than Japanese style ramen because our roots are based on Japanese techniques.
Yep.
It's just we've kind of incorporated some of our Hawaiian ingredients into that technique, whereas saimin is a very simple dish. The broth's very light. It almost has a sweet taste to it. The ingredients can be done very quickly, like a scrambled egg. And kamaboko, which is like a fish cake. The techniques used in making real Japanese ingredients are very arduous. There's a lot of systems that need to be followed to get them right. You can screw it up really easily. So, yes, we are kind of in between Japanese style ramen and saimin, but kind of leaning more toward the left.
Yeah. Just that when in Hawaii, people know saimin, so they only know one of the two. They don't realize they're like a third thing, and I want people to get their mind around. But you're right, it's much more closer to Japanese style for sure. But it's not. It's just a little bit. It's closer, but still its own thing, and it's pretty amazing.
Well, that's what you want anyway. You want to be unique. You want to be able to stand out. You don't want to taste like everyone else. So if there's a bunch of Japanese shops all lined up, you want to have the one that, I remember that one. That's the one.
And you had a lot of adventures with your food carts. You were you started out in Division. You spent a top minute at a food cart pod tidbit that was come and gone real quick. That was amazing. You were at the Bear Lake food cart pod. You had 2 carts for a while. I remember we celebrated that. That was exciting. And somewhere along the way, I started talking, maybe we'll go brick and mortar. And I'd mentioned a few minutes ago that Shut Up and Eat had opened at 38th and Gladstone, and you and your wife had visited there and thought it'd be a good place for a ramen shop. And one day, Sarah drives by and she sees that the paper's up in the windows and it's available it's gone. It's closed up. And I feel sad for Shut Up and Eat, but she immediately I don't know if she thought this through, because if I tell you there's a hot opportunity, you are on it like a duck on a June bug. You are tenacious. You will battle. And she said, hey, I think it's available. And you went and got that space so you could make the leap from food cart to brick and mortar.
I mean, we submitted our offer, and they researched who we are. So we had pretty good write-ups over the past 5 or 6 years of being open. And we knew that the food cart game is kind of fleeting because you're always subject to a lot being bought out by someone else and being relocated. So you didn't get any you couldn't establish yourself as like for the long term. There's always a moment where, oh, we got to help up and move, and you lose all your clientele. So to eliminate that risk, we need to go brick and mortar. And that particular spot that Sarah identified, we both knew that it was a great spot because it had high visibility in the southeast, next to where our carts were located. So our current customers could go there. And it's like, oh, it's just over here now. So we could kind of make that transition.
And this is where some of our story comes together. I have two different companies. I do the Culinary Treasure Network and create food and travel content. And then I have Spark to Bonfire, help people change their life, grow their brand, grow their business. And you reach out to me and say, let's open this restaurant. And I can't tell you, I had so much fun. We kind of took an unconventional approach, but it worked. And we had a tremendous amount of fun. And it opened, and there was lines out the door for a long time.
For days and weeks. But that wasn't unconventional. I don't know if anyone's ever done it like that, where, you kind of capture the evolution of that restaurant construction. We did weekly videos and kept everyone engaged. We actually opened the restaurant while we're still under construction, preview dinners and stuff. And that's super important because most businesses go out of business because they can't get open. They just, something happens and their cash flow burns out, and that's it.
So you guys opened fall of 2019. And, I know you love to body surf, and waves like break and they crest, right? They reach a point and then they kind of fall on top of themselves. I'm probably not saying it right, but people know roughly what I mean. And there's a wave out there people know now that was going to hit like March of 2020, but we didn't know it. We didn't see it. But you opened in fall of 2019. Now, this is where I feel like my part of the story comes a little bit my journey. So in 2017, I went to Kauai, and I ended up doing a podcast with Bob at Kaloa Rum. And I fell in love with Bob. I loved his rum. And at the end of the podcast, we're all done. And I said, hey, Bob, you know what a rum dinner is, right? And he goes, what's a rum dinner? I said, well, it's like wine dinner, only better. He says, what? You get like rum at every course? I said, yeah. He says, Steven, you cannot have a dinner where there's 5 or 6 courses, people at a cocktail at every, it won't happen. I said, well, we'll have a cocktail at the beginning and a cocktail and then have rum. And he says, I don't know about that. I said, Bob, someday we're going to do a rum dinner and you're going to be there. Probably in Portland. He says, okay, whatever, Steven. I think he thought I was crazy. So then I got a bunch of little bottles and I had them stucked away of Kaloa rum bottles, waiting for that opportunity. So you guys opened the restaurant in 2019. And then I hear that your family is going to take a vacation to Kauai. And I know that Kaloa rum's Kauai. So I run down there. Now you're doing Hapa ramen and whiskey. You love whiskey. You got lots of Japanese whiskey. Whiskey is amazing. And I come walking in saying, hey, I want you to make Mai Tais with Kaloa rum. And you look like I had a horn growing out of my head, but I had you taste the rum and you kind of liked it.
I mean, it made sense. I feel like part of our theme is, we have a Hawaiian kind of flair to what we do because we're from Hawaii. And Mai Tais are huge in Hawaii. And
you guys took a vacation to Kaloa.
It was our first trip back to Kauai since we'd been married. So it had been 17 years and we loved it. We stayed at the Hyatt and we had the kids with us this time, and it was just a fantastic trip.
Yeah. The Hyatt, the Grand Hyatt where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Yep. It was just a beautiful, incredible property. The pools, the people, the staff. It's amazing. And I'd emailed, and you ended up you and your wife met with Bob. He took you around the distillery, and you kind of fell in love with him and his rum. Am I right?
I mean, Bob has the same values that we kind of embrace, which is quality, consistency, and family. And he has a culture there that they're one big ohana. And when we run our business, like our employees, we treat them as we're one collective group together, working together. So that goes a long way. I mean, you want to make sure you've got the right crew behind you, because they're representing that product. Yep. So yeah, I mean, Bob, yeah, he's doing it right. What can I say?
So then Kaloa became the exclusive rum at Hapa PDX. And so then I could have my ramen, I could have my karaage chicken, I could have my pork belly, I could have my whiskey, I love whiskey, and I could have my Mai Tai. Mai Tai is very important to my journey, story for another time. I was so happy. Now, before we talk about the cool thing happened January 2020, I just want to go back in time. You opened a food cart in 2013, and 2014, Abigail applies to work in your cart.
Abby was the first employee, and I think she was either a freshman. I think she was a freshman at Reed, But she came in, she was really ganky, smiley. She had a really good personality. And, I mean, we weren't experts at like, okay, what's the ideal person to work for us? We just knew that she had good energy and, I knew she was excited about learning. And Sarah was the one that pretty much worked with her exclusively in the beginning. And it was all during the summer and it was like really hot. They're working the cart together hours and hours and she was all into it. I mean, she's awesome. Abby's incredible. And I'm so glad we have her right now running Hapa in Portland.
So a little bit about Abby's journey. I should probably do a podcast with Abby. That'd be amazing. But worked at the food court for a long time, graduated Reed College, ended up taking a year off to go to Osaka to work on her Japanese. She worked at a cool izakaya, a little sidebar. Had a year in Japan, which is amazing. And I remember you telling me about this Abigail, and you're getting ready to open your restaurant, and you need her to come back. And she moved back, and she rejoined Hapa, and she was with you from before the restaurant opened all the way through. And now she's the general manager of Hapa PDX.
It was perfect timing. She was coming back from Osaka. Her trip there for 1 year stay or 10 months was coming to an end, and she was watching what we were doing on socials, like the Instagrams and stuff. So I said, hey, not sure if you're interested or not, but we're doing a ramen and whiskey concept. Would you like to come on board? And she was definitely into it. So yeah, it was great timing.
So fun thing, January 2020, we ended up doing a ramen, and we did a rum dinner with Kaloa Rum, and Bob from Kaloa was there at Hapa PDX. You did an incredible job. You and your chefs and your wife, you came up with just a magnificent meal. We had so much fun. It was so great. Everything was rocking. To me, that was just like a joy and a highlight. I got to host it, and my fans were there, and your fans were there, and Kaloa Rum fans were there, and it was amazing. And then COVID hit, and you had to pivot yet again.
Yeah, I mean, when that happened, I kind of knew. I mean, I didn't know how long, but I knew that things were going to be different it was going to be drastically different. And it happened so abruptly. You didn't have time to really think. It was like, this is coming now. So yeah, we did what every other restaurant tried to do, is survive. And that's, you do takeout, doing ramen to go now, which is not ideal. But we had really good, loyal customers that were willing to support us because they wanted to make sure we didn't go out of business. And that was awesome. It's great to have that. Yeah, sink or swim.
Well, yeah, and part of I think what made it more, the pivot was hard. It's hard for everybody. It was hard for you guys, but you'd been a food cart before. And so you're already used to pivoting and moving and having to do through crazy hoops and doing takeout. And so for you already had some experience with all that insanity.
I mean, it's still deflating because that's not what I wanted. You don't build out a restaurant to do that. And I had a great crew that I couldn't keep them all. So yes, we could adapt. It was something that we knew how to do. But I think it tried everyone's patience.
Well, yeah, and I remember how hard it was for you. Sales went through the floor because everything stopped. COVID, Portland, everything stopped. And there's no way you can keep people on when there's nothing happening. And it was so heartbreaking to you because you really love your people. You really care about them. I remember your tears were welling up as we were working through that.
We had an awesome crew. It took a long time to build it up. And I mean, they realized what was at stake and they all kind of moved on to what they had to do. So, I mean, I'm not sad about that. I'm more frustrated than anything, but it just postponed, what we wanted to do like an extra 2 or 3 years,
Yep. So we get through COVID, things are moving along. And at some point, you and your wife start thinking, hey, maybe another brick and mortar. Wouldn't it be cool to go to Kauai? And then a really crazy thing happened. July 3rd, you let me know that you bought a one-way ticket to Kauai to help make a restaurant happen. Talk to me about that.
So I just took a trip in February to Kauai just by myself because I need a break. Need to get out of Portland. And my friend Michael, who lives here, he works at the Hyatt, said, come over. Just come over. Just get a ticket. That's all he said. So I was like, Sarah, can I go? I need to go. I went out here for 7 days and I was like, man, it was still quiet out here, but a lot of businesses that that were here in 2019 weren't here anymore because of the lockdowns. And there was a mall in Poipu that we went to, this particular restaurant that had the same kind of not concept, but structure. Like they did fast casual with the drinks and everything. And that space became available.
And you and Sarah had been there in 2019.
Yeah.
You'd been in that space.
Our whole family went there.
And Sarah had said to you, if I understand the story correctly, man, this would make a great Hapa.
Of course. I mean, we both said this. We both thought of it. It was like, this is what we want. I mean, this is the ideal because it's in a great location, phenomenal location. The clientele is awesome. The views were amazing views of the ocean. It's an established mall, and you're flanked by like some really renowned restaurateurs. And I think our particular concept of upscale ramen and handcrafted drinks, like super premium drinks, works there. So, but I was like, I don't know how we're gonna do it. I mean,
So let me get this straight though. You guys went to Shut Up and Eat and said, "Hey, this would make a great Hapa," and then it became a Hapa. And you went to this place and said, "Make a great Hapa," and now that's going to be a Hapa. Boy, where are you going to go next?
I didn't know how we're gonna get it. I didn't even know if Sarah wanted to do it. But when I came back from the trip, I kind of waited a few months. I didn't really talk too much about the trip. And then we're having brunch one day, and I said, "Hey, on that last trip," so this probably was 2 months after I came back, I was like, there were some spots available in that mall we liked. And I said,
this was like May, roughly.
In May. And that
May
was
of 2022.
That was the first time Sarah said, well, if we're going to do something in Hawaii, I want to do it now. I don't want to wait. So that basically like set like a stick of dynamite off in my mind. As soon as she cut me loose to do it, my brain, because that's all I wanted was to go back and do this project. But I wouldn't do it without her support. So once she told me that, then I did whatever I could to get that deal done. And this is a crazy hard deal to get. I mean, you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate that you're vying for these locations. These are exclusive spots that are built out already. They're worth millions. And we're competing with international restaurant groups that have their balance sheets are in the $100 million range. So we're very blessed to get this location. We know how good it is.
But what tenacity to moves me so much to say I'm moving. I bought a one-way ticket to Kauai, July 3rd. I'm out of here and I'm just going to go to make it happen. It's like jumping out of a plane with a parachute. Keanu Reeves in the movie Point Break. He jumps out of the airplane to catch the bad guy without a parachute. And to me, that's just that's kind of like, I mean, yes, you can buy a ticket on the way home, but most people would buy a round trip for a week or two. You're like, I'm after it. I'm going to make it happen. That just fires me up. I got to tell you.
Your mind is very powerful. And there's something I read or something I heard is act as if it's going to happen and do everything you can. So I was basically saying, in order for us to get this deal done, I have to be on island. I have to let them know that I'm serious. I'm moving here. And it wasn't the only reason why we're moving there, but they knew like, hey, our realtor said, hey, they're moving here. And so I went out first, and trying to get a place in Poipu is challenging.
A place to live.
Yeah. There's no places to live like long-term. It's all short-term rentals. And I knew that I had someone pulling for me at Alexander and Baldwin. Matt was the guy in charge he was the leasing manager, and he liked our concept. So he told me that, I think your concept works here. And he told me to be patient. So I knew it was going to be a process, and that's what we did.
And then your family moved out August, 9th? I can't remember.
August 8th. So
August
I was
8th.
probably here about a good month before they got here. I know I had to get stuff set up. Like the kids' school starts a month before they do in the mainland. So they actually started in August. So I had to make sure these kids were enrolled in these schools that I wanted them to get into, good schools. And there was a whole bunch of stuff, paperwork and getting transcripts set up and everything. So you need physical address. You need to be established here to get that done.
And you feel... Just as a side note, it just feels to me, being with you here in Kauai, it feels like this is like your home. It's like an old coat that you just love and you put it on and it fits and it's just warm and perfect. That's what Kauai feels like to me for you.
It feels natural. I mean, it's not like we have to force anything. Things just happen. It's like every day we're talking about it, right? Every day is a small miracle that we kind of experience, and we're grateful for that, and we feel very humbled by this opportunity. So we know there's a lot of work to get done. It's not like here, you still got to do that. You got to do what you say you're going to do.
Yep.
And that's what we enjoy doing: building a business, getting it set up. Sarah's very good with getting systems put in place. I'm pretty good at contracts and negotiation and people. So I think we are a good team, and we've got even, when we work together, it's even greater, and then we can get really good people with us.
But back to the Kauai and it feeling like home. It would not shock me just because of you. You guys are an incredible, powerful team. It wouldn't shock me if you opened 10 more Hapas in wonderful places around the world. And at the same time, it would not shock me if you're also 10 years from now still living in Kauai at the same time. I just feel like this just feels like you just fit here.
I love it here. I don't have really intention of moving. I could travel from here too, because you're accessible to Asia and the mainland. But as far as what Hapa will become or where we want to go, I'm not.
Oh no, that was just me just thinking.
Right.
Like, even if you expand, you love Kauai. You just love
Right.
Kauai. You
I just
love
enjoy
it here.
being here. Yeah.
And tell me about, just so people get a sense of your joy here. Tell me about your bodyboarding here.
Well,
you've been bodyboarding.
So it starts with the ocean. You're surrounded by the ocean here, the Pacific Ocean, and the ocean is very powerful. It has a lot of energy. There's a lot of spiritualness that goes with this ocean. It's pure, it's raw, and it's not like just going to a regular beach. This is like there's gigantic drop-offs. There's whales. There's big fish in the water. The swells are coming thousands of miles from Asia, and they're crashing onto these shores. And I love being in the water. I consider myself a water person or a waterman, which is not just surfing, but I like diving. I like swimming in open water, like paddleboarding. And I want to teach my kids about this ocean, because it takes time to master it. And because I've spent so much time in these waters, I understand the dangers and I understand the risk reward whenever you're going out.
But being in the ocean feeds the soul that you are deeply.
If I don't get in the ocean, I'm angry. Like, you start getting aggro, You got it. It's cleansing. But I'm so, I just got done surfing today. There's a big south swell, and I feel great. Mind's clear, focused.
That's fantastic. So before we close, we talked a little bit about the ramen, and if you want really details about ramen, I talked at length with Sarah when I recorded her podcast with her about what goes into the ramen, and we didn't give any corporate secrets. Don't worry about that. But some of those. But it's Hapa ramen and whiskey. I love whiskey. I love cocktails. You have some amazing cocktails. Talk to me about some of the whiskey. Whiskey comes and goes, but you always seem to find these amazing whiskeys. And so I just think if you're a whiskey aficionado, you're going to be able to get some whiskeys at Hapa that you just seem to have that gift of finding whiskey. Talk to me about whiskey and Hapa.
So, we want to pair our food with whiskeys, Japanese whiskeys and bourbons and ryes. And the flavor profiles of the broths dictate kind of what would complement it. And I feel like, I have a good palate. I know what I like, and I know what I don't like. It may not be for everyone, but that's kind of my take on it. And my brother, I got some, feedback. My brother's a big aficionado with bourbon. And he told me, like, okay, this, if you're looking for this flavor, then these are the best ones to get. So, like, when we created our menu, our cocktail menu, our old fashions, we use a particular high proof bourbon that really brings out the flavor.
And I love gin martinis. My two favorite cocktails are a gin martini and a really good old fashioned. And your old fashioned is fantastic.
Plus, we got the ultimate old fashioned too, which is like the $50 one, right?
Yep.
But what I'm saying is the beverages are evolving too.
Yep.
There's more. There's different alcohols out here too. There's local stuff, and we want to test some new stuff out as well.
But you're a whiskey aficionado. You get up and running and rolling in Kauai. Whiskey aficionado that comes to Hapa, they're going to be able to get either a good whiskey cocktail or get pours of really good whiskeys. You've always had really good whiskeys. Am I wrong?
We've always been fortunate, and it's there's a little bit of handshaking and favors to get those, but we want to make sure that we have premium whiskeys and bourbons on the shelves that pair well with our food. And it's not easy to do. I mean, you have to have the right environment to sell those kinds of those beverages. So I think we have that now more than any time. So
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if someday in the not too distant future, I don't know, 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, 6 months from now, maybe probably not 6 months from now, where the premier whiskeys, they're proud that they're on the shelf at Hapa. I can just see that happening because that's just kind of the whole, I mean, people don't get what you're putting together and just that whole kind of environment and vibe. I mean, that's the Hapa ramen and whiskey. The whiskey is just, it's a powerful backbone.
I mean, I feel like our beverage program is really strong, and it's going to get even stronger while we're here. And everyone who's had Hapa in Portland, I encourage them to come out here and look at our flagship. It's going to be that much better. We've got better sourcing for our local produce and our proteins. We've got really good talent that's going to be working for us. A really good team, and we're working with some nice distributors who can get us some really good stuff. So yeah, you're going to be amazed when you see it.
So now let's just talk about a couple of the cocktails. You've got a Mai Tai that is ridiculous. Now I will drink a bad dive bar Mai Tai and be happy, but a really good Mai Tai, I tell you, that turns my crank. And you do a phenomenal Mai Tai.
There's no our wells are premium, so we're not going to use anything that's not good. So every single drink you're going to remember it, and that's the same philosophy that we had with the ramens. It's like you're going to remember these broths; they're going to stand out. Otherwise, why even make them?
So you've got a Mai Tai, and that's made with Kaloa rum. See, what's the other? What's the breeze? The Hapa.
We have a Haku Passion.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Oh my goodness!
With a Suntory vodka and Lilikoi, some other stuff. We've got a Yuzu gin and tonic, and I've got this new Yuzu gin and tonic we're going to roll out for Hapa Kauai. It's going to be even better. It's awesome. And then we've got the Mai Tai is multiple rums from Kaloa. We've got a Molokai Mule, which is a coconut rum.
Yeah, Kaloa coconut rum.
Kaloa coconut rum. We've got a lot of sake cocktails. I haven't seen anyone else do sake cocktails out here, so they're going to be awesome. It's just something new. No one's doing it.
You have lots of good cocktails, including Momakawa from Oregon, which is really fun to have an Oregon sake. I just think that's amazing and a lot of fun.
Those guys are all in. They're coming out. Their stuff's been shipped, so our Momakawa is on a boat coming out here right now, and we have a great relationship with the manufacturer. So that's the thing. So we build strong relationships with the actual manufacturers of the alcohol. And then they tell the distributors, like, okay, we want you to make sure you take care of these guys. They like how their product's being displayed in Portland. They'll like it in Kauai even more.
And I know some of the people at Momakawa, Sake One, they're amazing. And I think one of the reasons, I know Jack, and he is such a cheerleader of you guys and a supporter. I think one of the reasons Jack gets you is that he had a food cart. I ate at Jack's food cart, and his was amazing food cart. So he gets the big picture. It's amazing. So let's close with, you do a really crazy cocktail that's got chocolate rum, Kaloa chocolate rum, not a chocolate flavored rum, a chocolate rum. I just did a podcast with Bob at Kaloa Rum where he talked in detail about that. But then it also has sake in it. It has some secret ingredients we're not going to give away, but talk to me about this cocktail. Whoever thought
it's like a dessert cordial. So we call it cookies and cream, and we use Kaloa chocolate infused rum, the Kaloa cacao with a Nigori sake and a couple other things, but it's really great. I mean, I'm not a big fan of too sweet, but I think it's right there. It's like a great cordial that's not going to be too sweet.
I just think as magical and as amazing as Sarah is with the broths, some of the cocktails you come up with, I would have never, I like weird stuff. I would have never in a million years thought to combine rum and sake. I've had that cocktail. It absolutely works. It's a perfect cordial, end of dinner. You just want a little sweet thing before you head off. Just hats off to you. Well, I'm so fired up for you guys. I love you guys so much. I'm so proud of you I'm really excited to see Hapa PDX is in great hands with Abigail. I'm really excited to see Hapa Kauai unfold. Sarah, she's not big on being too public, but I got her to commit to coming on in another year or two to give an update. And maybe in a year or two, you can come back on the podcast, give an update on how things are going with Hapa Kauai, because there are people all over the world cheering for you, from your dad, your brother, Sarah's family, me, lots and lots of fans in Portland, lots and lots of local people we've met here in Kauai. And it's well earned. You got a lot of people cheering for you and Sarah, and we got your back, and we love you so much.
Appreciate it, Steven, and thanks again for everything you've done to help us.
All right. Cheers, everybody.